Americans are flocking to the worst place to live in Italy. Don't they know? Hello and welcome to our Retire Early lifestyle. Let's get right into this information today. Why would we say this is the worst place to live in Italy? Well, you know how Americans talk about some of the states in America, right? Some Americans say New York City and Chicago, worst cities to live in, and some say California is the worst state to live in. And in the same way, some Italians call this place we're going to talk about the worst place to live in Italy for various reasons. The place in question is very pretty with very nice people, so let's get that out of the way. It's also quite cheap, and that brings in Americans that are looking for a cheaper cost of living. But are pretty landscapes, nice people, and cheap enough to keep Americans going there and staying there? We're going to talk about Sicily, Italy, a place that some say Americans are abandoning the U.S. for right now. Is that true? We see people leaving Sicily and going to Sicily. That's what we see. Let's talk about why some people are leaving and why Italians don't like Sicily. But before we do, let me tell you a short insider story. We've lived abroad 13 years, and we wrote a Cuenca landing guide years ago to give people a real sense or a cheap and easy source of due diligence. And you know what? People would buy the guide and be real happy to have received all of the great information, but they would still go to Cuenca, Ecuador, just to see for themselves. And usually they would check one or two of the things mentioned in the guide out of, say, 20, and when they saw for themselves that the guide was actually true, then and only then did they make their final decision. That seems to be human nature. So on with the Sicily show. Firstly, there is a water scarcity issue in Sicily, and it's been going on for hundreds of years. It didn't just start to happen in the last year and a half, as many articles and videos are reporting. In fact, absolutely nothing has changed in Sicily to make it have severe drought. It's just how the climate is and has been for many, many years. Italy is not far from Africa's Sahara Desert, and in fact it shares quite the same climate system as the Sahara Desert. On this next map, look at how close Sicily is to the Sahara Desert. We're looking at a mere 100 miles from Sicily to Tunisia in the Sahara. Frank told me that when he was a boy living in southern Italy, there were droughts in Sicily and even in parts of southern Italy even back then. That was in the 60s and 70s. And there were severe droughts in 1994 and in 2003 and 11, 2017, 2019, and 2020. And now we're seeing it again in 2024. A lot of southern Italy is dry and arid, but Sicily is by far the worst for wear. For many years, Italian farmers endured drought-stricken summers where they couldn't water their crops or livestock, and so they began digging wells so they could continue to homestead. Today, many of the old stone homes in the countryside of Sicily have their own wells. But over the years, many of them have dried up, and citizens had to stop utilizing their wells per the government regulation because the water became centralized and piped into most homes. Again, droughts are nothing new for Sicily, and the citizens just seem to reckon with it the best they can. Although some American expats may find daily life in Sicily a bit annoying and frustrating with water shutoffs and rationing water, which makes for the inability to water your garden, take a bath or shower when you want, and do your laundry. In 2003, the lack of water was so severe it killed 4,000 over the course of 4 months. We're hoping those were livestock deaths and not people deaths. The article does not state specifically. But the point is, no one ever heard about these other droughts happening at other different times. Why not? That's what we need to ask ourselves. Why now is it such a big deal? Fast forward to today, The drought this year has taken its toll on Sicily, apparently drying up the lakes, rivers, and streams, and the local government is opening up other sources of water on the island, and guess what those sources are? Look at this. They're going to evaluate some old wells probably dug hundreds of years ago for the tourists. The drought in Sicily is so serious that the Basin Authority of the region has put on the agenda the resumption of water withdrawals from wells contaminated by nitrates after the purification of the waters before their use. This will mainly affect tourist areas where more than 10 million guests are expected in the high season period. This was announced in a statement by the ANBI, the National Association of Basin Consortia. And it's also a translation because came from an Italian article that I translated for you. It is likely that the remaining water in more than half of the basin of Sicily is in fact unusable. What's ironic about this information we're sharing with you today is that videos just from 3 weeks ago are saying Americans are abandoning the USA for Sicily. Oh, really? We beg to differ unless Americans seriously are not doing their homework. Are Americans still not doing their due diligence? Americans would not go to Sicily if they knew they would be going through untimely shutoffs of their water and water rationing during the months of May through August. The article reports that most of these old wells on the island are contaminated with nitrates. However, they say they intend on cleaning the wells, so says the article, but the contamination is widespread and has been going on for decades, such as industrial waste, E. coli bacteria, amoebas, and giardia, depending on where the wells are located. The situation has remained static for decades, and now, just now, you really think they're going to clean it up? Well, one can always hope, but hope never filled your bank account or paid the bills in Sicily or anywhere else. Ground runoff can severely contaminate old wells. Let's hope they do a good job in cleaning them. So that is the first thing about Sicily that you will have to deal with, the hot, dry summers where it doesn't rain in the summertime. Sicily is also losing population, especially the young people. They've been leaving Sicily for decades, even centuries. Sicily has seen a huge decline in its population in just the past decade, and living conditions are surely part of the reason, but not the entire reason. Plus, Sicily is the poorest region in Italy, and there are less good-paying jobs to be had on the island, if any. Unemployment is higher compared to other parts of Italy. Without water, there is no life. It is very serious. Families risk their livelihood. Young people prefer to leave, and the countryside is emptying. Despite having one of the highest birth rates in Italy, an aging country, Sicily has been one of the most rapidly depopulating regions in the last 10 years. So while Sicily dries up, so does its young people. Fortunately, winter will come, the rains will fall, and the drought will subside for a while. Sicily is also the least developed area of Italy. They don't really have an efficient or organized garbage pickup, hence there will literally be garbage everywhere, even on the beaches. Unfortunately, some people don't respect their beaches and streets, and everyone has to put up with the unsightly garbage strewn to and fro. Reminds us of Panama City, Panama, or Playas, Ecuador. The Mafia is also known for illegal dumping of toxic waste materials, so if you do any exploring, you might come upon illegal dumping sites. Frank told me that as a boy, they would hear stories of Italian mafia gangs hurting people and extorting business people all the time in Sicily. Some people compare it to the cartel in Mexico, but perhaps a bit more sophisticated and organized is the Mafia. They tend to leave tourists and expats alone unless they interfere in their business dealings. Unfortunately, that statement is seen way too often in the live abroad press, and it does a disservice to all of the innocent bystanders that have lost their lives abroad. This is one reason why most expats don't believe Italy still has mafia gangs, or they think the mafia is somehow making their life better because they can get cheap pharmaceuticals. Yes, the mafia has control of much of the healthcare system in Italy. Sicily is cheap, and we think is why so many Americans are going there. Unfortunately, as we have explained in numerous videos before about cheapest, you're not getting the whole story. Sicily may be cheap, but you probably wouldn't want to live there for an extended amount of time. You have to consider everything, not just the hypey videos that leave out so much. We see many folks leaving Sicily according to videos. As some people like to say, you get what you pay for, and that rings true for Sicily. According to reports, Palermo and Catania are the dirtiest, most run-down, and most crime-ridden in Sicily. If you go to these cities, best to mind your own business, as they say. Much of the Mafia in the 60s and 70s was from Sicily. Now they've moved up in the world to other parts of Italy and control many facets of Italian daily life. They're not going away. It's part of life in Italy. When Frank was a boy, he said that Italians on the mainland would make fun of the Sicilians because they were backwoods, uneducated, and had a funny accent. Where have we heard that before? It was much like the difference between the North and the South in the USA and how they used to make fun of the Southerners. However, this is not one of our reasons why Sicily is the worst place to live in Italy. We think most Sicilians would be very gracious people and probably easygoing and laid back, and we'd love them as neighbors. Italians make great neighbors because they mind their own business. That's something most people don't know about Italians, but since I'm married to one and was very close with my Italian mother-in-law, I can tell you a little bit about how real Italians live and behave. We think Sicily is the worst place to live in Italy because the climate is just too darn dry for our tastes. And what goes along with that is real suffering by the people and your own living conditions when they continuously have to shut off the water and ration water. It's not a fun way to live, believe us. We've been there and done that living in Ecuador and Mexico. To top it off, the water tastes awful and is undrinkable, even though you may read online that it is drinkable. Still to this day, some Italians would want you to think that Sicily is not part of Italy because they simply don't like it and do not want to be associated with it. But the truth is, you can't take Sicily out of Italy because it's part of Italy. But some Italians take Sicily out of their consciousness. The population of Sicily is declining for a reason. There is good, bad, and ugly everywhere in the world. We're not picking on Sicily, we're only giving you the facts. It may seem the best thing since sliced bread to live in Sicily, based on what the postcard press is telling people, and that includes all the mom and pop Johnny-come-lately vloggers. They're the ones you should listen to the least, but alas, not the first thing that's backwards in life, is it, this day and age? It's cheap. It's beautiful and the people are nice, but there are many reasons you would not want to live there, and we just gave you some of those reasons. The Italians themselves will probably give you more reasons why Sicily is the worst place to live in Italy. Sometimes we need to just take vacations and see how that works out for us. But vacations do not replace serious due diligence, which can be done before even getting to a place if you know what you're doing, In other words, if I had a nickel for all of the Americans that have moved abroad after taking a vacation somewhere and thinking they did their homework, I'd be, well, you know, a real happy camper at the Nickel Arcade. Thanks for watching and be blessed. Take care and bye-bye.